As already introduced, my name is Gilbert Chauke. I'm from the Department of Trade and Industry. From the Department of Trade and Industry, I'm stationed within a division that is known as IDAT, which abbreviates Incentive Development and Administration. And within that particular division, I'm stationed in the unit that is known as Strategic Partnerships and Customer Care. What is our core business as Strategic Partnerships and Customer Care? One of our core business is mainly to do the promotion of our products and services, particularly our incentives, with the view of trying to increase the uptake of our products. I'm just going to do a brief presentation on one of the unique programs that we have, which is your manufacturing competitiveness enhancement program. One of the core objectives of the program is merely to encourage enterprises to upgrade their production facilities, processes, products, and upskill the workers. And more importantly, to provide support for the manufacturing sector in order to maximize output and employment. So this particular program is basically designed to ensure that it contributes towards fast-tracking the issue of job creation. The third bullet there, as you can see, one of the objectives is to expand existing IDC, distress funding facility to SMEs, and to reduce the cost of capital for distressed enterprises, and also to reduce the price of working capital for exports and businesses participating in government infrastructure program. And lastly, to strengthen the responsiveness of available incentive schemes to the current economic challenges. Available incentive scheme, this particular scheme is mainly designed to support entities that are already existing, that are operational, those that want to do expansion, those that want to expand their production facilities. Now let's quickly look at the MSEP benefits. What are the core benefits of this particular program? As you can see, the program, it is basically a non-taxable grant calculated at a percentage of manufacturing value added. We call it MVA. And it is kept as follows. As you can see, the percentage is there. Basically, we look at manufacturing value add assets is more than or is larger than 200 million, then you can qualify for 7%. If it's between 30 million and 200 million, you can qualify for 10%, or the enterprise, the entity can qualify for 10%. 5 million and 30 million, you can qualify for 12, 15, which is for assets below 5 million. And as you can see, my last bulletin there, we're saying that the grant is more favorable to SMEs. If you don't understand what we mean by that, you need to look at the breakdown of these particular percentages. You'll realize that the last bulletin, we're saying that for enterprises with assets below 5 million, then they can be able to qualify for 15% of their manufacturing value add. How do we then calculate the manufacturing value add? This is the formula that the Department of Trade and Industry uses to calculate the manufacturing value add. As you can see there, it's turnover less value of imported goods, other goods, sales of other goods, and less material input cost. Then it's equals to manufacturing value add. I know that the formula is a bit technical. It's just unfortunate. I cannot dwell much into explaining the technicalities of the formula. But however, in my department, we have a specific unit that is assigned to manage this particular program. So if you want more information on how this particular formula works, you can give me a call. Then I can be able to link you with the people who understands deeply the technicalities of this particular program. Now let's quickly look at the structure of the MSEP program. As you can see there, the program is divided into two components. The first component is the production incentive grant, which is mainly managed by the Department of Trade and Industry, IDAT, our division. As you can see, the first component is divided into 5 categories: your capital investment, green technology, enterprises level competitiveness and improvement, feasibility studies, cluster competitiveness. And the second component, it's the loan facility, which is mainly managed by ITC. And the last, I'm not going to read everything there. As you can see, the last component consists of 3 subcategories. Now let's quickly do the breakdown of the first component. Like I've indicated, the first category is capital investment. This is the nature of that particular category. It is a cost-sharing grant towards investment in upgrading capital equipment and expansion of productive capacity. And the cost-sharing grant is between 30%, 40% and 50% of the investment. And the maximum grant that you can qualify for, it is 50 million. And we're saying that an entity can actually also qualify for additional bonus, and that is provided that if they procure at least 50% in rand value of their total project budget, machinery and equipment, tooling manufactured in South Africa. So if you are going to procure machinery and tools manufactured locally, then an enterprise stands a chance of qualifying for additional 10% bonus. The Green Technology Program, in terms of its benefit, it doesn't differ much from the first category that I just presented. As you can see, still the cost-sharing grant between 30, 40 and 50, you still qualify for additional 10%, and also it is still the, in terms of the maximum, is still 50 million there of the grant that you can qualify for. Enterprise level competitiveness grant, it's a cost-sharing grant towards investment in the adoption of world-class manufacturing practices such as lean production system, Six Sigma, etc. And adoption and accreditation of conformity and quality standards such as your ISO, improved packaging design, acquisition of IT software systems, project-specific skills upgrading, and so on. And in terms of the cost sharing, it's 50%. It's between 50 to 70% of the project, of the total project cost. The feasibility studies grant, it's a cost-sharing grant, and qualifying costs will include engineering design costs and other relevant consulting fees, and it's a cost-sharing grant between 50 and 70% of the total project cost. A cluster incentive program, which my colleague here has just briefly talked about it. It's a cost-sharing grant developed to support cluster initiatives aimed at improving competitiveness, innovation and access to new markets. And examples, as you can see there, we're saying that initiatives that can be funded includes shared infrastructure, such as Sector Technology Development Center, market research, international advertising and publicity costs, etc. And we're saying that access will be subject to a defined minimum number of enterprises, and the cost sharing will be 80-20 there of qualifying project costs. The last component that I've talked about, it is the loan facility, which is managed by the IDC, and we're saying that it's financed to cover working capital requirements from date of receipt of order to dispatch the to customer, including raw material, packaging and transport costs or transportation costs, a date of dispatch of goods to date, when seller realizes the proceeds of sale, and we're saying that the finance is fixed at 6%. We also have a component there, a distressed consignatory fund. We're saying that preferential interest rate facility for any distressed manufacturer, and also, as you can see there, the finance is also fixed at 6%. And lastly, we have the niche funding, which is designed to support strategic projects proposed by the IDC and the DTI sector desk. For one to be able to qualify for the program, there's a lot of qualifying criteria that entities will have to meet, so that for them to be able to qualify for the program. But because of the issue of time, I've tried to only indicate three areas there. As you can see, firstly, you must be a South African registered entity. More than anything else, the program is designed to contribute towards accelerating the issue of employment development. As you can see, the projects are required to sustain existing employment levels at the date of application for the duration of their participation in the MSEP. So it is important to note that particular element. The program is designed to last for 6 years, and the enterprises are required to renew their participation at the end of every 2 years. We're saying that in terms of BEE, this is a requirement. We're saying applicants should achieve at least level 4 of BEE in terms of the codes of good practice. And applicants who are not able to comply to this particular criteria, they need to provide at least a motivation to say what is it that they are going to put in place to ensure that at the end of the day they are able to comply to this particular requirement. I think that was my quick presentation.
My name is JC Greiling. I'm giving you a private sector perspective, but first, we are part of the PDNA group. Sorry, Chris. Consulting engineering firm, 25-year experience. We've got a few offices in Africa and I think in Mauritius as well. We've about 450 people, but that's not really where I am. They are our holding company. We are Econogistics. We're a subsidiary of PDNA Holdings. And what we basically do is we take a concept and we make a project. And you know, due respect to all the banks, but they don't fund that. So, Econogistics, just a bit of background. We do corridor development work. We've done transport infrastructure work, logistics infrastructure studies, and then local and regional economic development projects. Just more about ourselves, and specifically on the right-hand side, which is important, which is where we've applied the CPFP funding. Let's start on the left. We do corridor development work. There's some examples of the work we've done. We do local and regional economic development. We do the development of potential logistics and transport infrastructure, which is an important word, that potential. Because you have to identify the project, do a bit of pre-feasibility work, and then apply for the funding, because you can't just sell a concept. Maotis Industrial Park CPFP project, the Tsumeb Logistics Precinct CPFP project. We've got some experience, and I can carry on. Okay, Maotis, that is in Tet, Mozambique. We identified the market for industrial park to supply those mining companies. There's a massive boom in terms of exploration. We applied to that. We did a bit of research. We did the pre-feasibility. We applied for CPFP funding for this study. The study took 4 months to complete, in which time we had to deal with James Koko and Ronaldo and the guys from the CPFP office. And it was very pleasant, I must say. Due to the outcome of the study, we've been able to secure an investor and a financier to develop the park in Tet. We've actually applied for funding just to go a bit further twice for park specific. One was the one in Tsumeb, but that one I'm not going to go into too much detail now. Now, the evaluation process was very quick and swift. They normally apply, you normally submit your application about a month before the sitting takes place, so they can review the documentation before the committee sits. You have to define your proposal well. You have to demonstrate what the benefit are to South African companies, and you have to prove that there's a real business case. We did a bit of upfront work in both cases, and we've just applied for more funding for another project because we did the pre-feasibility and we realized there's an opportunity. The administration of these programs, very well administered. You have to submit obviously detailed timesheets, expenditure sheets, those type of things. Good housekeeping is part of every good consulting firm, so that's not a big problem. Claims were handled efficiently. Once we've submitted the claims, they were always paid on time and quite diligently. Reporting is very important with CPFP. You have to report at the milestones. Even afterwards, if you are requested to report, I mean, we closed out the Maotis study quite a while ago, and still to today, we sometimes just give feedback to DTI in terms of the progress with the actual implementations of the project. Just some background why Tet, why we did the project. I know you say we shouldn't focus on the projects, but it's one of the fastest growing areas in terms of coal. Rio Tinto, Vale, there's a whole lot of big companies that have moved in there. Vale has invested $1.5 billion into the Maotis concession, and there's the Benga and Zambezi concessions. What we also realized is not only the mines there, and that's sometimes what you must look at the projects. If you just focus on one sector, you tend to get a skewed picture as well. An industrial park like this that we're proposing, they will also serve the tobacco industry, and there's a big one in Tet as well. There's also power stations going up, so South African companies can go and supply on the power stations. There's the new bridges that's being built, there's new roads, there's hydroelectric dams. There's a lot of opportunity there, hence the focus on Tet. It's still the fastest growing area in Mozambique, but there's a lot of challenges. And part of the study was obviously to identify those challenges and see how we can overcome them. And there is other opportunities in TED specifically, not related specific to what we're doing, but there's, for South African companies identified in the study, there's opportunities in industrial parks, retail, accommodation, tourism, private hospitals, transport, and I can go on. Just an important point there, it's one of the focus areas of the Mozambique government to develop industrial parks in that region. There's 5 big or 6 big poles or areas that they've identified, and TED was one of them. Hence we got support from the Mozambican government. You see that we actually got CPI involved, the Ministry of Planning and Development, the administrators. It is quite a cumbersome political process, but we got the support. What's the market of our park? The Moatize Industrial Park will service logistics. It will have a logistics hub, logistics service providers from South Africa, distribution center, consolidation and deconsolidation centers, and even a truck stop facility. Equipment suppliers, important for the capital side of it. Mining, electrical, transport, aftermarket spares will be able to be hosted in this park, and we'll probably invest in this park well, I'll get to who's the tenants currently. We'll have centralized facilities because that attracts people to the park. We have secured land and all of that, so you don't need to worry to set up your ICT infrastructure, security, fences, get land. It's all in the park. Easy for South African companies now to go and settle in TED and service the mining industry there. We had meetings with several stakeholders in the industries, and we've secured, in the feasibility phase, 60% tenants for the first phase development. The first phase development is 100,000 square meters on the roof. Now that's a lot of tenants from South Africa going to Mozambique. And there's the sectors from which they will be coming. Okay, what's the socio-economic impact of this? There's job creation, there's impact on regional GDP, there's skills and training facilities that's going to be going in there. Local economic development will be stimulated, and foreign direct investment. We've already made quite a big impact through the study. There's just the artist impression of the development we're going to do. Again, it's in support of all the sectors in that region. There's a lot of problems in TED, like I mentioned quickly. You can't access land. A lot of guys setting up in TED at this stage are taking big risks if they go on it their own. A lot of people get land from the local governor knowing that that land is on mining reserves and concessioned land. So you will set up your business and someone's going to pay you market value when they move you, when they want to start mining where your company is. So that's one of the challenges and why this park is such an important thing. It also gives South African companies a solid base from where they can start operating into northern Mozambique. Okay, and that's, like I said, that's the type of businesses that's still opportunities there for people to go and explore. Sorry, Nedbank. Standard Bank Group International has come on board as the funder. Atterbury Properties Holdings will be the developer. The Mozambican government is involved. Obviously, PD&I will do the engineering work. We took the 45% risk internally. And hence we now hope to make money out of selling our engineering capabilities there. All right, Imperial Logistics Africa will take the heat lease for the park. They have come on board, first of all, as the main investor. They will invest in the sense that they will supply the security on the heat lease and they will sublease facilities to the tenants. The role of the South African government, obviously the DTI and CPFP funded the project for us. The main objective of the program was to facilitate the study that could lead to the export of all these services and goods. The secondary objective of the program was to attract higher levels of domestic and foreign investment. And obviously all the SADC and all those targets were also met. I'm not going to go into detail, there's a lot here. The feasibility study was done, the financial model was developed. That's part of our study, was to develop a financial model with 20-year projections. In other words, developing a bankable business case for an investor. That's part of the feasibility process. If you don't do that, it's just another paper that's going to lie in file 13. We've appointed a technical team, preliminary conceptual layouts and drawings have been done, and the shareholders' agreements have been signed by all. A project has been approved by CPI, the land is secured, and we are soon to start with commencement with the development company to develop the park. The shareholders' agreements have been finalized. Bulk services is still a bit of a challenge, but the Mozambicans have signed that they will assist in supporting on that. Now, subject to our study on the industrial park, there was an opportunity identified because of doing business in Mozambique is so difficult. And BPEC then drafted an application to the SSAS fund to establish a trade facilitation center in Mozambique, specifically northern Mozambique, to allow South African companies to interact more proactively and easily with their counterparts in Mozambique. We were one of the companies that submitted proposals to this, and we were appointed. We also then, in the process, worked with DTI as the service provider to BPEC, so I can also talk about the funding from SSAS. The proposals was written to BPEC. BPEC selected a service provider, and obviously it's a co-funding model for the service provider from BPEC and the DTI. Administratively, it works in the sense that once Roelof is happy with our product, he then tells DTI, and he pays us his part, and DTI paid us their part. And we did the study for the establishment of a trade facilitation center in Mozambique. Everything worked wonderfully. The only delay was with Roelof. DTI was very quick. Not really. No, the program was administered excellently, and we had to report, obviously, as well on milestones, just as with the CPFP program. BPEC identified the opportunity to set up a trade facilitation center. And one of the aims, I think, is to start to latch on to these big projects as well. That we are doing all over Africa, and Roelof has a dream of replicating these in Africa, these trade facilitation centers. But now he's got a base as well with our Motis industrial parks. Our methodology we looked at the business opportunities in TET, the business environment in TET, what makes it easy or difficult to go and work in those conditions, except for the temperature. Let's not talk about the temperature there. We obviously gauge the requirements from the South African companies to go and do business there. And we try to match that and do a costing implementation plan for establishing a trade facilitation center. There's opportunities like with the industrial park in mining, energy, residential, tourism, commercial, transport, all works. The same challenges exist as what existed with the industrial park study. What I was talking about doing business in Mozambique, that part of the study, you had to go and have a look at what the Mozambicans expect of you to go and set up a business in Mozambique. We studied all of that. It's all available to BPEC now. The specific processes you have to follow to set up a business and actually start dealing in Mozambique. We made some recommendations, and we identified certain challenges that we'll still have to address. Those challenges, a lot of them will be addressed in the actual implementation of a trade facilitation center. Stuff like the availability of documents, the language barriers, those type of things will be handled through a trade facilitation center. We also surveyed amongst the members of BPEC and some of the other export councils the need for this, because obviously there's no need for a trade facilitation center if nobody wants to go there and do business there. 76% of the companies have done or are doing business in Mozambique that we've interviewed. Okay, 43% of them are still at that stage when we did the study. We're still doing business in Mozambique. And the companies came from those different export councils that we interviewed. 81% of companies said have and still are doing business in Mozambique. So it has and are. 90% of them are aware of projects. 95% of them responded that they are interested in doing business in Mozambique. So there's definitely a need for something like this. And then I can carry on with all the results we found. So some of them had special conditions. If we go to Mozambique, we want a boardroom. We want a PA to be able to set up meetings for us before we get there, type of a virtual office setup. The facility is planned to be available to all South African companies that want to go do business there, hence the South African flavor to it, SA Trade Facilitation Center. And it will assist with all the problems experienced in doing business in Mozambique. We developed a costing and implementation plan based on the requirements from the companies that want to go there, and we submitted the financial model as to how to roll it out. There's different models to run something like this. We've proposed fixed funding models, fully funded by mixed funding models where it's private and public sector, fully funded by an anchor tenant or fully funded by government. The problem is funding an SA Trade Facilitation Centre fully by government. It actually loses its business flavour, and you actually can't market it to someone else as well. By having a full-time anchor tenant, he's just going to lease it out to whoever, so it won't have an SA flavour. So you have to have that mix between government and private sector to promote South African business up there. Just what was the role of DIRCO and how we see the role of DIRCO going forward, the role of DTI. Obviously, this is suggestions that will have to be studied further in the implementation process, and one has to secure, obviously, support from these two entities to set up a sort of an entity that has a South African flavour to it in Mozambique, not a company-specific flavour. Right, the way forward we suggested was to finalise a funding application to do the phase 2 of the study, which is the actual implementation, to get the shareholders involved, to develop the model that it will run on, and then obviously implement it by getting staff on board, getting an office, those type of things. So that's just very quickly. That's not me, that's my boss. Otherwise, I would have been Portuguese. That's my CEO, Dr. Paulo Fernandes. His contact details, if you've got questions on some of the type of projects we've done, or our experiences with DTI, both on the CPFP, SSAS, or even with BPEC interaction, you're welcome to contact us.